Loneliness is the only human emotion that can't be shared. So what if you knew that you would never feel lonely again? Hi, I'm Judymay Murphy, and here is where we gather to transform your life from the inside out. Loneliness is a horrible, horrible feeling. I remember when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I used to feel lonely every night. I used to cry myself to sleep. And now, I can't even tell you the last time I felt lonely. And part of that was working out exactly what loneliness is. Because it's one of these umbrella terms we just take for granted, like happiness, sadness. But when we can work out exactly what it is that we're doing, then we can work out what we need to do to change that. So that's what we're going to do here today. I'm going to be teaching you the three fundamentals, the three things that must be there in order for you to feel lonely, and then the three fixes for those. So let's go. By the way, if you're new here and you'd like to find out loads of different ways that you can easily, quickly transform your life completely from the inside out, think about maybe pressing that subscribe button, ringing that bell so that we can stay in touch. So there are three fundamental things that need to be in place in order for you to feel lonely. The first thing that needs to be happening in order for you to get to a place of loneliness is self-isolation. That means pulling yourself away from other people, not being around people. Now, if you're introverted, you might be saying, well, I love pulling away, I love being on my own. This is different though. This is the kind of self-isolation that comes from a feeling of either being threatened or overwhelmed, or perhaps from just not wanting to put the effort into being around people. And if you're introverted, it doesn't mean that you are destined to be lonely. You know that there's a difference between going with a book into your bedroom and just having some me time, and then really wanting to pull away from people and just not wanting to be around people. It's been proven that when we look people in the eye, when we're actually physically touching people, looking at them in the same space, that our brain can kind of calm down. And it's something that's happening increasingly because everyone's trying to connect through social media. So that's the very first thing, is when we self-isolate, this is absolutely the foundation for loneliness. Point number two then, the second fundamental that needs to be in place in order for you to get to a place of loneliness is toxic shame. A feeling of, even if you are surrounded by the most amazing people on the planet, that there's something fundamentally broken about you, there's something wrong with you, and that they couldn't possibly love you, and there's no point connecting, that it's all going to go wrong, they're going to find you out, maybe through imposter syndrome, or maybe you sort of fear what's going to happen because of your so-called brokenness. And that way of dealing with the world, that way of believing that you're broken, is a huge, really important part of loneliness. Third fundamental is a feeling of helplessness, a feeling that you're not going to be able to make this right no matter what you do. A feeling of, even if you tried everything, that you would still be there with that feeling of loneliness. And that's not the case, as we're about to find out. So what are our three fixes? So the first one is our fix for self-isolation. Often, I get it, friends and family can be too much. But if that's the case for you, make sure that you are surrounded by community. Even if there's a doorman or somebody in a cafe who you see regularly, just that connection, just that being around other people, having people just nod at you, smile at you, remind you that you're there, remind you that you're human, is really important. So that's step number one, is try to build community without thinking that every single person you meet has to be your best friend or else get completely thrown out the door. Here's a little priming moment to get you ready for that. So our second fix is the fix for the feeling of toxic shame. Now, this is not a quick fix by any means, but we can move forward immediately by remembering that feelings are not facts. Just because you feel less than, just because you feel broken, doesn't make it a fact. And if you remember that, you're more likely then to go out and have the conversations with people and then get the feedback from them that says, hey, you know what, I liked this conversation, I liked being around you, so that you are able to remember that you do have value, that people just like you for you. But if we just kind of stay thinking that the feeling of being worthless is a fact, we're less likely to go out and more likely to feel loneliness. So working on your toxic shame every single day, just remembering that this is something you learned how to do. This is something that just didn't happen overnight, and it's not something that's born of fact. And then thirdly, that feeling of helplessness around the other two. So in order to remind yourself that you're never helpless, that there's always something that you can do something really small, like say to yourself, okay, I'm going to take 2 pieces of action today, not necessarily around loneliness, it could be around any aspect of your life, but just to move things forward, to remind yourself that you can get traction, that you can make things work, that you can transform things. And then you'll remember that, you know what, if I can transform this, I can transform other things like the people that I'm around, like the way that I'm feeling. It's really great to have you here. And if you'd like to join us on Instagram, you can do that. It's Judymay_Murphy. And remember, you've got this. See you soon.